Welcome to the drawing board. I'm your host and in-house artist, Erin Leffler. If you joined me before here on the drawing board, welcome back. If this is your first time with me, here's a quick rundown of what happens here on the show. Every episode of the drawing board, I invite a guest from around the entertainment industry, and we learn a little bit more about what they do. And while we learn about what they do, I'm also drawing them in real time. Pretty fun, right? Well, I am super excited to introduce y'all to my guest today because he has made so many awesome contributions to some of our favorite animated classics, working on things like The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Secret of NIMH, and more. He has done a lot of fun stuff around the industry, and I can't wait for you guys to meet him. Please welcome my guest, Philo Barnhart. Hi there!
Hi, how are you?
I'm good! Thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
Oh, thank you for having me. This is fun.
Yay! So, for kids who may not be familiar with your work, because I did mention films that they've seen before, but maybe don't know what goes on behind the scenes, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you've done?
Yes, well, I was born to animator parents in 1957. My parents actually met at Walt Disney Studios during the war, the Second World War, to be specific. And I came along in '57 and had a pretty normal childhood, except that I started drawing in my crib when I was 2. So as the years went by, I didn't really understand that the animated characters I was seeing in the movies, especially the ones my parents were doing, were created by people. I just bought them as real. I think a lot of us when we're children buy those things as real, even the TV animation. So I didn't really think I would be in that business, but I knew I wanted to continue drawing. I knew I enjoyed creating things. So I was always encouraged all through the school system to do my drawings and my paintings. And sometimes I sculpted, but not a lot of times. I really enjoyed drawing the most, either pens or pencils. So I started getting interested in animation around the time I was 11. And that was the year that Yellow Submarine came out. It's an animated feature from England featuring the Beatles as cartoon characters. And I just fell in love with it. After watching it in the theater, I went home and tried to draw everything I could remember. There was one other film that I remember doing that with in the '60s, and that was 2001: A Space Odyssey. I went home and I drew everything I could remember, including the instructions for the zero gravity toilets, which I thought a really funny gag in the movie. Anyway, wasn't funny for them, I'm sure. But I just kept on drawing and got interested in animation, not because of a Disney film, oddly enough, but because of that film, Yellow Submarine. So, and I was already a big Beatles fan, starting in '64 when they first came to America. But aside from that, it was a wonderful film, and it had a style that was unlike Disney's. So I got to thinking, well, this shows that animation can be any style you want. So I started developing my own little ideas, along with some friends at school who maybe weren't the artists, but they had ideas, and we started doing things together and thinking, well, maybe we really should do this, when we get older and are of age to be professionals. So the first time I dared to go to Disney to find out what I needed to do to get hired there someday, I was about 16 years old, and I went to see one of my father's former co-workers and friends, Andy Engman, who was now in charge of, he was a liaison and personnel at the studio for incoming artists who wanted to be animators. And so I brought my portfolio as it was. I draw a lot better now. Of course, you get better as you go on. But he gave me all kinds of good information and said, you really need to start doing gesture drawings and observing how things move and behave. Even watch your pets. I said, oh, that's great because I have Siamese cats. I like drawing them and in repose and in action. So that was all good information. And it got me thinking about, movement and behavior, which is what you need to do when you're animating. There's a lot of things you have to think about when you're animating. Gary Goldman, my friend at Don Blue Studio, he used to say to us, doing animation is like trying to keep 50 pennies spinning at once. And he was right. But I'm digressing. So I went back home all inspired, and I knew I was only 16 and there was no way, about doing drawings from life and trying to structure better my things. And one of the things he told me is drawing hands, for example, it's good if you know what's underneath. So when you finally do get into, early college or some art classes even before then, take a little anatomy and learn what's underneath the muscles and the skin, and see what's going on under there, how things are connected, so on. And that really helps you to draw, what's on the outside, what you can see. So eventually things happened, and we moved to New Mexico from California for a couple of years. And then it took a little of the wind out of my sails. When we got back to California, I thought, well, that's maybe too lofty an ambition. So I was entering UCLA, some courses in basic art. And I enrolled in graphics for product and advertising, graphic work, and even designing ergonomic shapes for bottles and things like that. So that was all very interesting. I thought, well, I'll go into developing products and doing advertising and graphics for those. And so I really threw myself into that. Well, in the meantime, my father was hard at work at Hanna-Barbera Studio in Hollywood, doing layouts. I don't remember what the shows were then. Probably a lot of Super Friends and things like that. But this was around 1977 when Star Wars was brand new. And that year, everything was going space age. All the cartoon shows were doing space vehicles and things. So he came home one night and said, hey, how would you feel about studying 2 nights a week at Hanna-Barbera? And I said, what for? And he said, well, they are, a lot of their people are retiring or dying out, like human beings will do. So he said they are planning a class with at least 30 people to start learning how to do in-between animation for television production. And I said, oh, that sounds fascinating. So I thought, well, maybe I'll, it can't hurt to study a couple nights. And I still have my classes on the other nights. So in I went for 2 nights a week, and they hired all 30 of us out of the class. And I never did finish my studies. And from there, I just moved into the rest of the industry, starting with television animation. And then my first ever film was Star Trek: The Motion Picture. And I just kind of fell into that because my friend John Kimball, who is Ward Kimball's son. Ward was a famous Disney animator. He was one of the 9 old men that you heard tell about. But he was a famous Disney animator, and John was his son, and he was also animating. And he called me at Hanna-Barbera. And I said, John, where are you? Are you here? why are you calling me when you can just come to my floor and talk to me? He says, no, I'm in Marina Del Rey working for Paramount. I said, really? And he says, yes. Judy Niver and Darryl McNeil are also here with me. And they suggested also that I call you because we're on sabbatical doing Star Trek the Motion Picture. My friend Robert Swarth asked me to come and animate by hand some things. In those days, we had no computer graphics to use yet. Everything was still being done by hand. All the traveling mats for the spaceships were all still being done by hand. And they were still blobbing the film, which is a process where if there's light on the elements that you don't want showing through, you actually paint it out on the frame of film of that element. And then everything is put together optically later. It's fascinating, but they just don't need to do that anymore because we've got the computer that do it all in one time. So not so in those days. The kitchen sink production. So even the feature clouds that you see in the film were a wire hanger that we spun in front of a white sheet and did stroboscopic photography of it so that it made this swirly little cloud shape. And then we reversed that. We did a negative of the positive image so that everything that was black became clear and everything that was white became black. So here was this swirly cloud shape that we put on the animation stand and backlit it and used purple and blue gels. And we made two of these things and pulled them over each other, one frame at a time, so that the clouds actually shimmered a little bit. And that's how we achieved that, I guess, to give you an example.
Wow.
Most of what we animated was lightning bolts and things like that were just emanating from the V'ger itself. And one scene in particular, I got to trace off the Enterprise. They actually shot the model first, and I had to show where the lights were showing up on the film, and I had to indicate which frames the lights were flashing on, and which frames the Enterprise was rocking around on. And then I would have to indicate by tracing the edge of the Enterprise so that we could actually hit the exact edge with the... So what I didn't know was while I was projecting those frames of film, they were backing up inside the projector above me, and they were accordion pleating in there.
Oh, no.
like what a Jack-in-the-Box is mounted on, like a spring. So Michael Bakauskas, the man that loaded the film for me, he came in when I was ready to start another strip of film. And we opened the door to the thing, and the film sprang out, spludoing. My heart stopped, and he says, "Oh, don't worry, we can print it again." I said, "Oh, that's right. Thank God." I was such a novice. Well, that's my one and only special effects film. Well, I did return to Hanna-Barbera for a brief while to work on Heidi's song after that, which was their last feature, actually. They made at Hanna-Barbera. They had done Charlotte's Web before that, and I'm trying to think if they did another one. It may have only been Charlotte's Web. No, they did the new Alice in Wonderland. That's right. That was Charlotte's Web. And so from there, I got the opportunity to join Don Bluth's studio when they were starting up. They just left Disney, and I thought, oh, wow, I could learn from these people. They were with Disney, and I can learn how to really do full animation, because I had a very limited understanding of how full animation was done, because I'd only done the limited animation for television, which is it's complicated, but it's a lot easier to accomplish because you're reusing things over and over again. So I went over and applied, and they gave me an in-between test, cleanup in between. And it was the Kittens from Banjo the Woodpile Cat, their first independent film. A short film about within 30 minutes. And that was the film they learned a lot of these techniques over again that had been lost at the studio over the years, because Walt himself had gone a lot more economical after Sleeping Beauty, because the cost of the art was just killing them. It was very expensive. Sleeping Beauty was very not cost effective. It was hand inked, still, beautiful color line work. Plus, it was in widescreen, which meant they had to fill the screen with artwork. My father was on that film for 6 years because of the exacting drafting of the characters. They were very difficult to draw. And one little mistake would have been magnified on the 70 millimeter film. So, very difficult film to make. So Walt, after that, said, "No more. We've got the Xerox process ready to go." That was a means to get the images off the drawings onto the cells, and I think it was terrific, because at that point you could actually see what the animator actually intended. Because when you ink something, the interpretation, there's something lost, from that drawing. Hate to say it, but it's true. So you were actually seeing the spontaneity of the animator's actual drawings, which had been rubbed down slightly with a kneaded eraser and touched up by the assistant animator who was cleaning up the scene. So Bluth was doing the same technique. They were doing touch-up only, because they had learned how to draft so well. And then the animators had not had as many training sessions and things since that time. And so they decided to just relearn themselves. And they would do this every night after working at Disney all day. They would go to Don's Garage in Culver City, California, work into the night on Banjo the Woodpile Cat. So they had the opportunity to make The Secret of Them, and they partnered up with a production company called Aurora Entertainment. It was going to be distributed through United Artists, and that was the beginning of really learning how the craft worked. So from there, all the other movies and projects came out. And a lot of diverse things too. We did 3 video games at the time. By the time I made it to Disney, I also worked on short films for Epcot, and things that were going to be used in the theme parks or for advertising or for educational materials. So I did all kinds of things, not just feature films, but even television commercials. I did a lot of those. They even did an M&M's commercial at one point. That's back when we were hand drawing the M&Ms. Now they look absolutely real because of the CG. But I know I'm digressing slightly, but I never thought about doing advertising or product development again. But you actually do develop products to go along with your movies. So we did lunch boxes, apparel, all kinds of things, designs that were used on T-shirts. And then later, after I was done with filmmaking, Beauty and the Beast was my last one with Disney in '91. I went right into publishing with Disney, and then from there into the rest of consumer products for the Disney company. So what I had learned at UCLA all those years ago came full circle. So I got to do it all. And I met lots of wonderful people along the way, and we inspired each other. And I have dozens of zany stories from working in the studios. Pretty much all of them would allow us to blow off steam because it's a very labor intensive process doing any kind of animation. And so you need those zany outlets every once.
Well, that sounds amazing. It's like you've had your hand in a little bit of everything.
It is exactly like that. Yeah, yeah. It's never been a dull moment. The only time it's slowed down is more recently with the pandemic. So that's because we had to. I'm not used to being a hermit, being cloistered away, so it's been a little hard for me. I'm a social creature, so as the rest of us are, I'm sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it sounds like you've been doing this for quite a while, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I have to ask, because you mentioned about going to school a little bit. This is a
Mhm.
question I love talking about because there's so many different opinions on this. Do you think it's necessary for a kid to go to school if they want to get into this industry, or do you think they can have like hands-on learning experiences as well?
Well, there's a lot to be said for the encouragement you can gain from being in school. Because if you get a great instructor, um, they can really encourage you to push, sometimes push beyond what you think your boundaries are. You really don't know personally until you try. To got to put that fear behind you and just push, 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 push. So I often had to do that, and we all slipped into that. The fear would start to come in. Well, what if this happens and this happens? Oh, well, what if I don't have this at that time? And so on. And you got to put that stuff behind you. Also, it's not good to hear people say you can't do a thing. That makes my blood boil. I have several friends who would agree with me. They say, yeah, what motivates me the most is when somebody tells me I can't do a thing, and then I go out and I do it. And say, aha, see? It's a good feeling. So
Yeah.
you can get a good instructor that is going to encourage you and not unduly criticize you. I know they're hard to find, but they may not even be aware that they're raining on your parade. Everybody's different, so um, I tried to get, when I was instructing at Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design for the 4 years I was there. I tried to get to know each and every one of those people individually, to find out how far I could get them to go. Some people you couldn't bring along that fast, so it really depends on the individual. But I would say swallow the fear and be courageous and just forge ahead.
I love that you brought up the fact that you have to have a teacher that is looking to help you, not being unduly cruel to you, because that is something that can be very challenging, especially if you're just dipping your toes into this for the first time. That can make you shy away from it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I was very lucky. I
And
had plenty of encouragement from my classmates, my friends, and especially my instructors. So um, one of them I remember quite well. He taught my basic art. The period where you're learning to do shading and so on. You're doing cross contour drawings. Your basic art exercises to help you understand the shape of things, the form of things, structuring things out. His name is Robert McKay. He used to have a cigar butt in his mouth all the time. And he would wear a flat cap, one of those deerstalker types. But he was a wild man. But he told me before the end of my term with him, he says, now people are going to praise you and laud you and say, oh, your artwork is so terrific, and try to get you to rest on your laurels. He says, don't do it. Don't you get lazy. You keep pushing. You, in a way, don't believe them. They're praising you. I said, okay. And I understood what he meant. He there was no malice to what he said. It was just, he was making a point. Don't believe them. You push farther than that. Good is not always good enough. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And from somebody who has had the inverse experience with schooling, I can say 100% agree that if you have somebody there that pushes you to be better, definitely does help. But also it does kind of give you more oomph if you want to get into this and somebody's telling you you're not cut out for it. You do kind of want to prove them wrong. So definitely makes sense.
Right. You can ask my friend Linda that too, back in California. That would drive her insane. You know what I really hate, Philo? I'd say, what's that, my dear? Someone telling me I can't do a thing. I said, amen, sister, I said. And she made me the most beautiful. She was making goose eggs and ostrich eggs with seams inside, kind of akin to those sugar eggs you might remember when you were younger, or even now, which you might remember. They still make them, usually for like Easter time, but they have little seams in them. You look inside the sugar egg and there's a little seam, like a Easter bunny with hiding eggs or something. Everything's made out of sugar. Well, she would make hers out of that poly clay that you can bake in the oven. So she made Ariel's grotto in an egg for me.
Wow.
He surprised me with it. And I said, yeah, glad you stopped listening to people that said you couldn't do a thing. Beautiful egg you just presented me. So, but I still encourage people whenever I can. We attend many conventions during the year. We didn't do anything in 2020, obviously. But we're going to start getting into it again around April, I think. Closer to my birthday in May, we're going to be doing things. So often I'll have young people come up to me and they'll show me their sketchbook or whatever and ask my opinion, and I'm happy to talk with them about it. And some of them I invite to sit with me, and I'll do them some tips. I'll ask them what intimidates you the most about drawing. And 9 times out of 10, they'll say drawing hands. that's a big one. So I have all kinds of tricks for drawing hands, and I'm happy to sit down and show people how to. I'll usually get a gasp out of them when they see how easy it is. And it is easy.
I love that everyone brings up hands. That seems to be the artist Achilles heel, which I find hilarious because I find myself struggling with it from time to time. And I'm like, you'd think if I'm staring at them all day that this would be easy, but sometimes it's a challenge.
Yeah, well, just simply structuring them out is it's no big thing. What I try to do is instill in them that you're not trying to do a finished drawing right off the bat. That's actually not how animation works. You're very loose and reserved. You're not doing tight drawings right off the bat. You're getting the motion and the feeling down first, and then you can go back in. If after you've tested that scene in its rough form, if you like the way it's moving and progressing, then you can start finalizing the drawing. But it's the same with doing a still drawing. you really need to just explore first, and then you can clean it up and detail it. But go for the feeling first. Don't get caught up in the minutia right off the bat. I had to stop my students from doing that. I finally broke them of it after a while. Granted, some of them might still do it, but they couldn't help but just try to clean it up right off the bat, and they couldn't get a drawing actually started because they'd still be stuck on one little part of it. So think of the whole thing first. Just think of the whole thing. If you're going to structure out a character, think of the whole thing. Start with a stick figure if you want to. That's really the heart of gesture drawing that sometimes don't look like much more than a stick. A ball for the head and a line of action for the body.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
by far the easiest thing to demo on a chalkboard too.
that is definitely a good point. Just a couple lines, easy.
see, see the tension here and the relaxation here, and they say, "Oh yeah." Another exercise is to this is animation exercise done for years. Is taking an inanimate object like a sack of flour and making it have emotion. There's a drunk flour sack. There's a proud flour sack, pushing its chest out, if you want to call it a chest. There's a drunk one. There's a happy one, an exuberant one, and it's done with the attitude, the whole attitude. The body is telling the attitude. It's not just the face.
Absolutely.
Right.
So, a bit of a fun question. I love talking about this because a lot of times with how social media is now and stuff we see on the TV, a lot of kids feel that the only way to be good at a job is just to do that job all the time. But humans were very multifaceted creatures. We got a lot of likes and dislikes. So I love talking a little bit about hobbies and if they help us be better at our job. So, do you think hobbies help you be better at a job? And if so, do you have any?
Yes, I think number one, they're a great way to free your brain for a little while, and you can actually kind of go brain dead, and it's something you enjoy. It's a relaxing endeavor. I enjoy science fiction, and therefore I enjoy building models of spacecraft and things. I haven't done it so much lately as just not set up for it at the moment. But it's something I've always enjoyed my entire life. And getting together and forming singing groups. Been into music. My parents were both musicians. My brothers are musicians. And I've spent most of my life singing. Mostly non-professionally, but it's become kind of a hobby too. We've formed non-professional singing groups. I've joined choirs. That's fun and relaxing, and it gets you thinking about how music works with art. It's all what you want to call the liberal arts, I guess. It's all creation. It's all art. That's why they call musicians artists, because they are kind of an artist too. There's just so many things I enjoy. Photography is another thing. And that can, down the road, that can help you understand composition of an image. Just being in the act of creating a photo, it kind of helps you think cinematically in a way. Finding out what's important in that scene to tell the story. Are you using the background to frame the action of what's going on, or is the background featured in such a way that it's like an establishing kind of thing? So, but that can all come out of a hobby too, photography. And it's a lot easier to do now. You don't have to wait for your prints to come back from the photograph. You just take your digital camera out and snap away. Though I do miss the film. I did all kinds of fun effects with my actual film. You know, backwinding the film in the camera and doing double exposures. Not quite the same on a computer now.
No, there's definitely a lot of things that get lost when you do it digitally compared to on film.
Yeah, I have done puppets. I used to do puppet shows when I was little. That was a big hobby. Collecting things. I like collecting fine stones, crystals, things like that. Rare coins. That opens you up to geological things, interesting things about our planet, about nature. Collecting coins opens you up to history. A number of things. Studying folklore, being interested in folklore, opens you up to all kinds of human history, which you can apply to what you do with your storytelling. Makes you a well-rounded person with world history. So if someone says, can you make me a film about the times of Jesus or something, you can say, yes, I have a bit of knowledge and I can do more studying about that. So,
Absolutely, and I love the term you just used there, well-rounded, because that helps us be a better functioning person outside of work as well.
right. I don't know what I would do with a child that wasn't interested in something. I mean, when we were children, we were constantly bombarded with things, and I loved it.
Absolutely, for sure.
I was very curious about all of it. We sometimes got me into trouble, but those are risks you have to take, and we learn from that too. We learn from our mistakes.
Speaking of mistakes, that's actually something I love talking a little bit about because tagging along with the whole idea of we see everyone going nonstop on social media, a lot of social media is what I like to call a highlight reel because we're never seeing the behind the scenes, how many tries it took, you name it, to get to the final product. We're just seeing it being finished.
Right.
Do you think that it's important for kids to learn that it's okay to make mistakes, and can they learn important things from making mistakes?
Oh, absolutely. That's how I got to where I am today. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I know how to problem solve for myself now. Walt Stansfield, who was a family friend who worked at Disney also, by the time I got there on Mermaid, he was teaching classes every week, life drawing classes. And I actually posed for the classes and got paid extra because I was making costumes. That's another thing that I had a hobby of making clothes and costumes. Used to make my own Renaissance fair costumes and things.
How cool!
But I lost my machines in the eviction in California, so I haven't really sewn since. But yeah, he used to say to us, spot it for yourself. If there's a problem with the drawing, especially if you're a cleanup artist that's going over an animator's rough and doing a cleaned up interpretation of it, spot problems for yourself and get to that point. And so it was all by trial and error and by making mistake after mistake after mistake. And thankfully we had Walt there to say, why don't you try it this way? I mean, didn't say you do it this way or else. He said, why don't you try it this way? If you can get a hold of somebody a mentor that can, be a little gentle with you that way. But everybody got so proficient at what they did, and it was all from learning from the mistakes. And believe me, there's a lot to be made, especially in animation, the process. Some very heinous things happen. Sometimes there wasn't time to go back and fix things. but you had to dream up some other way to make it better. But I would say don't be afraid to make a mistake, because that's how we learn.
Absolutely. I love that you said that too about not being afraid to make mistakes, because that's something I think that because of what we see on social media and everything is harder for people to understand, that it's okay. Don't be afraid to do it because everybody does it, even if we don't see it happening.
Right. And it kind of goes along with what I said earlier about somebody trying to do a finished drawing right off the bat. Don't do that. Go for that feeling first of what you ultimately see in your mind. You know, when you get that blank piece of paper or that tablet in front of you and there's nothing there, just relax and be lyrical and go with the flow.
Love it.
Don't try to do a detailed face or something right off the bat. Structure it out. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, because you know what? The programs and the physical erasers we still have work wonders. Always go back and fix it.
Definitely true. Physical erasers do wonders. I know for me, I work on the screen a lot of times, so when I get back to using an actual piece of paper and pencil, I always love having that big eraser next to me, because I'm like, this is going to help me so much right now.
Well, I was thinking of another thing. After a while, it wasn't so much the proficiency of drafting a character. It was actually what actually was for me making mistake after mistake was the timing on the character's movements, things like that. That is really tricky. So I was making a lot of mistakes on the animation itself, not so much the drawing, but making that character move. So that was a little trickier. But still, you have to forge ahead and learn all you can. The first sequence they gave me to do on Secret of Nim, for example, I knew nothing about panning scenes, scenes where they have created a pan background, which is rather long. It sometimes can be about 4 feet long. And they pass that under the camera on the pegs and shoot it sequentially. And the standard is 2 frames of film for every drawing until you go to a pan, because the optical illusion is that if you're trying to move a character on 2s in front of a background that's moving at another speed, it starts to strobe and look strange. So everything goes on 1s when you're panning with the background. And I didn't understand that. I had to be taught that. And that was a big wake-up call. So the first sequence was the Great Owl that I had to do. And all the pans came at the end of the sequence, but the camera's following him as he walks out of his tree home and then takes flight. But I had to do that over and over again because I didn't understand how it worked, but I soon learned.
I love that. I think it's important too that learning on the go is also a thing that happens a lot of times. Even though we may not feel like it's happening, sometimes we're actually learning things when we don't even realize it.
That's right. That's right. That's the bonus. That's the bonus round.
Absolutely. A bit of a more serious question as well, because a lot of times, especially with the industry nowadays, there are a lot of jobs out there, but there's also a lot more talented people out there. So it can be a little competitive trying to go up and get a job at a time, and that may be a little challenging for kids who maybe are a little more shy and aren't, the competitive type compared to somebody who plays sports. Do you think it's important for kids to focus on being competitive, or do you think that they can actually take a second, meet people who do the same jobs as them and learn from them and also make friends with them?
I think all of that is good. Yeah, let meet some people that are doing what you want to do. Find out how they feel about things. Like I did with Andy Engman at Disney. Find out what you need to know to get better. Very important. He gave me so much great information. And that goes along with so many things like sports, like you mentioned. Uh, any skill, any human skill is, pick people's brains. Don't be afraid to engage them and find out what it's really like. You may find out that, oh, maybe that's not what I thought it was. Maybe that's not for me. I need to rethink. Like with me, I was going into advertising and product making. Little did I know I was going to be in animation, right? So, um, you never know, but you can be proactive with that, and yeah.
I love that. I love the fact too that you brought up about, maybe a certain job isn't for you as well. Learning that and being able to switch is also a great thing. And you don't always have to stay in the same job either, it sounds.
Right, right. I remember that film, Fame, about the creative high school in New York, and uh, how one instructor just tried and tried with this poor girl that was trying to be a ballerina, and she says, I think you really need to rethink. You're just not. Your heart isn't in it. You're just doing it because your parents are telling you to do it. She was never really into it, and so she went off and did something else, and was a lot happier. So sometimes it works that way, and that's one of life's hard knocks. But it doesn't have to be forever. You can move on.
For
And
sure.
whatever you do end up with, I'm sure you're going to love a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that happened for me.
And look at you now. That's awesome.
Opened a lot of wonderful doors, and I met a lot of great people over the years. And made a lot of great projects with them too.
And you just mentioned something I love talking about as well, because you said you met a lot of great people. I think that this is important. Do you think it's important to have the right attitude in the industry? Because that can rub off on other people, right?
Oh yes, yeah. You're going to have days when you don't want to see anyone. You know, Thankfully we have sometimes separate offices. We often did, or you could just cloister yourself away when you were in one of those, dark moods. But there weren't that many dark moods. So, no, not many dark days compared with all the others. So, and it's not always your attitude isn't always from your work either. It could be family problems or something, trouble you're having at home or with a certain individual that's encroaching on your time to be creative. Uh, there may come a time when you develop skills to tune that out too. Often we would still do. We would put headphones on, especially if we shared a room with someone at a studio. We'd put our headphones on and listen to our favorite music. Just tune everything out and just focus on the work. And, keep happy for a good long time. Seeing dailies together was a communal, fun time at the end of the week too. Just so you could see what you were working on come to life and see what everyone else was doing too. It was very exciting.
Absolutely.
That's the keen part about animation, filmmaking. I reckon it's the same for live action, but animation, you're actually creating life from nothing. Live action, you can go out and shoot something physically, but you know how it's going to come out, how it's going to look. But animation is you have to keep testing and trying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So a couple more questions for you. These ones are some of my favorites because I feel like they take everything and tie it up nicely together.
Mhm.
Something I find very important in the industry, and we're seeing a lot of positive changes with it, and you've seen a lot of changes in the industry yourself, is when it comes to diversity within the industry. We're seeing a lot of new faces, a lot of new stories come out, and it's really exciting. But there's still times where it's got a little bit to go. Do you think it's important for kids to be able to see people who look like them, sound like them, speak the same language that they do, doing the jobs that they want to try one day?
I think so. Sure, sure. That's called diversity. You know, uh, we're all part of the same world, and it's important to see that everyone is different, and including yourself. But you mustn't be hard on yourself either. Uh, but don't be afraid of that person either. You can only try to go on up to them and engage them in a conversation. Um, Maybe they look a little scary, but feel them out. See what you find out. You might be surprised. Some of the toughest looking people, you know, I actually considered scary, turned out to be some of the sweetest people I ever met. And a lot of them were in animation too. Yeah, every color, every shape, every size, every gender. So
I love that you said don't be afraid of them because I think that's something people are usually afraid of the unknown if they're not used to being around somebody or not used to being working with somebody. That's a great thing to keep in mind because it takes everyone to make something good.
well, my mother used to joke with me, if you're going to stay home and be afraid of other people, you may as well lay down and die right now. I said, yes, mother. This is this is a miniature of our Dragon's Lair video game.
Oh, wow!
This came out last year during the pandemic, and I was at a game show in Portland, Oregon, in 2019, and they brought this prototype by my table. I was there talking about Dragon's Lair, so I joined their Kickstarter campaign.
Oh, wow!
A fantasy adventure where you become a valiant knight on a quest to prepare princess from the clutches of evil dragon.
What? That is so cool!
A daring adventurer finding his way through the castle of
Wow!
has enchanted with treacherous monsters and obstacles.
And you can play it too.
Wow, that is really neat!
In the mysterious caverns below the castle, your odyssey.
The game was featured more recently in the show Stranger Things.
Absolutely. I know a lot of my kiddos love that show. So if you've seen that show, you might now be familiar with the game that we're talking about and he's showing us here.
Took place in 1983 yes, 83 when we brought this game out. And so this is keep playing the thing, but you can actually play it. It has a little joystick here. See?
Oh, wow!
And a scoreboard and everything.
That is so neat. Which actually, that's going to lead to something I love always asking my guests. During the pandemic, we've had a lot of kind of free time on our hands, so we can either think about things that we've done or things that we currently are doing. Is there anything that you've been working on or have worked on that you want to just like talk a little bit about?
Yes, well, the things I'm doing with my friends right now are very interesting. I'm working with my friend Gary on his Broadway show idea. And what he has in mind is animated projections representing the characters of the title, which are beasties, and they are like representatives of human emotions, like anger, hope, all these things. I'm blanking out, but what I'm doing right now is chanting heads of these characters in animation. So I've been getting back into animation somewhat. Again, he provided me that outlet. That's one of my sidelines right now. I work part-time with my friend Charles here in Illinois, where I live now. He has a company called Silver Phoenix Entertainment, and he does mostly comic books and comic-related things, publications for education and also horror the theme of horror. So he has a new horror comic out now called Tales, The Haunted Tales of Bachelor's Grove. Bachelor's Grove is a notorious cemetery where there's unusual phenomena that have happened over the decades. It's right here in Illinois. It's a famous place, and it has a lot of paranormal activity around it. So he's done an anthology book, and this is, I believe, his second or third issue. It's stories that are tied in with the graveyard itself. In addition, I'm doing a book with him called Whispers from the Void, which you can see on my Facebook page if you ever visit me there. It's part of Facebook. You just type in Whispers from the Void, and it'll take you to the art page we have for that. You're also welcome to see my page, Philo Barnhart Art, if you want. And I try to post things when I'm finished with them. I just did a funny print of Ursula at a piano with parts of a ship around her in the middle of nowhere in the ocean. It's called Shipwreck Serenade. And flounder her hiding behind a barrel that's floating in the water just behind her. So there's a big candelabra on the piano too, and a lot of people thought it looked like Lumiere before he became human. I mean, human features. I said, "What's Lumiere doing there?" So you'll have to go have a peek at that when you chance. It's on Facebook under Philo Barnhart Art.
Which I will make sure to have that link down here below in the description area of the video, so you can check that out, or you can ask your parents and go check that out. So that'd be a lot of fun. Definitely go check it out because it's pretty amazing work for sure.
And keep an eye out because we might be coming to your town at a convention. We're hoping to get that started, as I said, in April and May. We're going to start the convention circuit again. Yeah. Hopefully by then we won't have to wear all these masks. And I can actually get to see people's beautiful faces again.
Yeah, hopefully we get more of this vaccine rolling, because the more we get of that, that'll definitely be a good thing.
Yeah, that's right.
So last question for you, my favorite of the entire episode, because it kind of takes everything and ties it up in a nice bow. If there's a kid right now watching this that's interested in getting into the industry, or just even now wants to learn a little more because they're curious, what do you think the one thing they should learn walking away from watching this is?
Oh, you mean as far as technique or
just overall lesson, whatever you feel like they should learn?
Oh, well, number one, I think you should be aware that it is a lot of work, but it can be fun and rewarding as well. So just make sure it's something that you want to do or initially try. And like with everything else we talked about, you can only try, and you'll know right away if it's for you or not. When I will say this though, when you see your first animation test that you've shot yourself after you finished animating it does tend to grab a hold of you and not let you go. So just to warn you, I just get away from it. So there's also that. But just give whatever it is a shot, and it's not all done by hand anymore. I wish there were more hybrid projects like Klaus, the Christmas movie, or Paperman, or where they use both hand-drawn and computer. It seems that the digital has pretty much taken things over, but Klaus was unique in that it was hand animated, and then they made it look rendered by using the computer, and it was beautifully, seamlessly done, and the characters have a lot of depth, substance. So perhaps you'll be one of the future innovators, like these people have done, where they've created a hybrid form of the animation. So you never know what's going to come your way until you try, but you have to try. If it's not for you, ultimately you'll know, and you can go on and do something else that will make you happy. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. That was absolutely awesome to hear. And I hope all you kiddos out there learned a lot from that. And now comes my favorite part of the episode where I'm going to show you what I was able to make you while we were chatting. I'm going to warn you in advance. These lights in my studio, they like to be tricky. They will mess with the color, so I'll send you an actual copy after. But I'm going to try my best to get this up in here. Hopefully.
Oh, that's great. You got my shirt especially.
I tried. There's a lot of detail going on there, and I'm like, I'm really hoping I'm grabbing this right.
You got my coloring.
Well, thank you again so much. It was an absolute blast to have you on here, and thank you again to everyone who tuned in. Again, I am your host and in-house artist, Aaron Leffler. Catch you next time on the drawing board.